Welcome back to another episode. We are in London, England this week and speaking with Juliet Bellagambi. Juliet is a change catalyst and positive mindset and empowerment coach. Juliet, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Enrique. I am so pleased to be here, and thank you so much for inviting me to this show and really sort of having the opportunity to share what I'm passionate about and what I teach others, and for me also what I continue to develop and sort of learn from. So yes. Greetings from London. It's sunny today, and we have mild temperatures, so it's a good day. It's a good
Yeah,
day.
any sunny day in London is a good day, right?
Yeah.
I live in Florida, so it's called the Sunshine State. So if we don't have sunshine, something's wrong. but But I tell you, folks, we're going to be talking about specifically leadership and positive mindset today. But before we get into that, Juliet, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, so yes, I am Juliet. I think that the way you introduced me is pretty much who I am. So I like to tell people about who I am. Sort of, I'm a positive mindset, sort of an open person. Um, but aside from that, in terms of the doing type of things, I am a coach, I am a trained teacher, I am a facilitator of change. And this started really about 20 years ago um, as a fresh girl with no experience, being in London and seeing a job advert without any experience. And the job advert says, do you want to make a difference in the lives of young people? And that really spoke truly to me. So I went for the job interview. It was in a youth offending team, so sort of working with young offenders. Um, Without qualifications, they must have seen something about me, and I think we might talk a little bit about that when we talk about leadership, that really empowers people and enable them to make the steps that they want to change. So currently, I'm a teacher, team leader, manager. I do that part-time. And the rest of the time, I develop my business, and my clients are around schools who want me to do some sort of family coaching. But I also look towards charity organizations and really working with the most vulnerable in society. And yeah, having these conversations. I call it conversational change. And of course, a bit of provocation and challenge, which kind of gets us to do some movement, right? Because sometimes they're really stuck. So that's essentially what I do. I am a mom of two children, a boy, 20, and a 10-year-old daughter whom I've shared some videos with on sort of LinkedIn and other social media. And yeah, my partner. And I'm originally from Uganda, but I've lived in the UK for quite some time now. So yeah.
And I tell you that if you're aiming to make any positive impact on the world, it would be the challenged youth, right? That group of potentials, because although they are in activities that may not favor the law, they their potential still lies there. And so a person like you or people in your field of work can uncover that, and they can see a brighter future. And that's why we're talking about positive mindset. If that is not the best environment to try to see that come to
No.
fruition and see people,
Yeah.
really come to an aha moment and change the trajectory of their current path, that would be just amazing. And so I love that you're in that arena, that you're
Mm,
doing the work
mm,
of I would say God's work, right? Trying to infuse positivity in a
mm.
often dark and bleak and just challenging environment for those youth. So thank you for the work that you do there. Now,
No, you're Most welcome.
Now,
Thank you for sharing that.
yeah, no, my pleasure. And, battles are won and lost in the mind.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you, why do we struggle with positivity when we have, that option of going in a way that will lead to our success?
Mm. I think some of it is a misconception, because I think when people talk about positivity, the expectation is that you're going to be happy all the time. That is not what positivity is about. I've had days when I was really stressed, when I was sad, when I was angry. There's a bit of self-awareness and really being in touch with your emotions. But then with positivity, there's always a what next. There is a how do you want to live your life? What is the next best thing that you can do? What is going to be helpful to you? This is how I frame positivity. How do you want to live your life? And what can you create that is really positive? So I've seen that shared a lot actually on LinkedIn and other things. But wherever I've been, whether it's in the youth offending team or whether it's working with women who've experienced domestic abuse or violence, or doing my positive development, people want to come because they say you're positive. Now I'm having some of the most challenging conversations with them, and I'm not being, yay, we are all positive, and I'm not pushing it on them. But there is something that, given this situation, what are we here to create? What are we really looking forward to doing? And that is how you cultivate a positive mindset, and then give them the tools, of course, like the growth mindset that Carol Dweck talks about, like sort of reframing our situation, like using positive language. Um, and when I've worked with parents, sometimes when I worked in the youth offending team, so hello, Mrs. Smith, how are things going on? So Mrs. Smith might say, the child doesn't do that, the child doesn't do that. Immediately, the language is not positive, and the child hears this. So the work then begins, what do you want to see? The work then begins about the sort of the neuroscience and the brain and how we can help achieve these outcomes if we use more positive language. So that's kind of how I explain it to people. Does that make sense to you, Enrique?
Yes, very much. And you mentioned something that's very critical and key to creating this positive environment, which
Mm,
is that word creation. We do not emphasize that enough.
mm,
Just because you're in a negative situation or circumstances may be negative does
mm,
not mean that you cannot create an environment of positive influence, positive success, positive outcomes. And
mm,
sometimes we don't give ourselves the credit that we have the ability to
mm,
create.
mm.
You create havoc just like you create happiness. And
Practice.
if you could do that and understand that that is at your hands to be able
Mm,
to wield in a good way,
mm,
then a lot of those battles that we talk about in the mind could
mm,
be overcome with positive action. So thank you for sharing that creation piece.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
you know,
you're most welcome, and it's really you said compassion, and I think in my work, and certainly if you want to make positive change, you've got to come to people with where they're at with a sense of compassion. Some have developed, some have sort of grown, we're all on different journeys in terms of our personal development. So I think a recognition of that and knowing what is the best way to support somebody, sometimes it might just really be acknowledging, hey, that must be quite difficult, man. Yeah, that would get to me. Sometimes you need to sit with somebody um, before sort of thinking about, as you say, we create haddock and we create heaven just by our thoughts. And that's sometimes a difficult piece of work that needs to happen. So it's knowing when to sort of have those conversations. You're absolutely right about creation. Yeah.
yeah, very powerful. Now,
Mm.
we all have our, profession and the
Mhm.
things we do best. You're in the positive mindset arena. And I wanted to ask you, what was the moment that positivity took over for you?
Wow. So for a long time, during primary school, you know how children can be cruel and kind. Let's go to the cruel side, right? I think everybody has a story of not feeling like they belong in a certain situation. And often that might come, for some people, it's actually in the house, in the family home, which is really difficult. For others, like for me, it's when you leave home and then maybe going to a school and then somebody picks on you. So for a long time, I felt that this kind of sense of not belonging because of the way I looked, because of the way I looked. I used to be teased about my skin color and all that. And that was hard. That was really, really, really difficult, to experience. As a child, you feel that there's something wrong with you, there's something not right about you. So I lived with that for a very long time, and then came to the UK. Of course, it's very multicultural. It's very diverse. It's a cosmopolitan. I absolutely love it. But that the sense of you looking really different, yeah, kind of really, really stayed with me for a long time. It really wasn't until I started. I was teaching, of course, but it wasn't really until the moment when I felt I needed to start helping people. So I was putting myself out there as a positivity coach, developing workshops, but I really did not. I hadn't healed um, from some of that. And when I was preparing sort of my workshops about self-esteem, low confidence, the power of positive thinking, building your resilience, I kept going into room, and really not feeling it. Um, but it was my learners, it was actually my learners that got what I was saying. I was really saying it theoretically, but when I saw the transformation, that's when I knew this is actually me. So really just walked out from that. I shared books, and I'll tell you the book that changed my life in that aspect was The Four Agreements. Um, who wrote that book? It's downstairs on my shelf, but he talks about making new agreements for ourselves. It was then after reading the whole book that I said, that's going to end. That's not the Juliet I know. This is a Juliet I know. The words that were told to me, the words that have left scars on me are not my words, and I need to make some fabulous sort of new agreements for me. Um, and did some work with a coach. She called it rapid transformational therapy, and it was really rapid. And I really, the positive self-talk really enabled me because of the work that she did in terms of taking me back to a place where I felt this little, to actually acknowledging my uniqueness. So what somebody said about me is something quite unique, and a beautiful thing about me. So when I embraced that, I think that really made a big difference to me.
That's so powerful, the ability to agree with something, right? From a biblical standpoint, which I read all the time, it says that
Mhm.
two do not walk together unless they agree, right? And that means that you are in tandem. You're going down a journey, and some of these words that are introduced into our lives when we're younger, we tend to agree with them. Now, we may not like them, but then we start taking this journey with them and,
Yes.
and can't let go for some reason. Such a powerful element when you talk about how am I going to navigate this life? What are you agreeing with? And for those listening, what are you agreeing with today that may not suit you or may not serve you in a positive way? And what can you start to say, and create, right? We talk about that word create
Yes.
new words that you can agree with. Such a powerful book. I'll make sure to highlight that in the show
Yes.
notes when we end up. But
Yes.
it's such a powerful thing to be able to know that you can create And you can also agree or disagree. And most of the times, the struggles that we have are because we're agreeing with the wrong thing. And so, not talking about agreeing with the wrong thing, we talk negativity. And you
mm,
shared one way that a leader can
mm,
change from negative to positive. But what are some other ways
mm.
that leaders can go from negativity to positivity?
Okay. I think some of that, and thinking about myself, I think about myself in different roles initially as a parent. Um, and how do I really want to change, any negativity? I'm thinking about it like that. So I'm maybe thinking about the young people I might be working with in a difficult situation. I may be thinking about my role as an empowerment coach or a family coach. Positive language is key. I've said it before, and planning. So when we talk about succession planning, what do you want? Do you want something really bad or do you want something really good? And that really helps to frame people's minds. Of course, I want something really good. You know, let us plan long term for the future. What do we want to see? What we want to achieve? Who is the type of person we want to become? How do we want to influence and sort of communicate with people? And moving away from, we know that we are going to make friends, build relationships with people that are balanced, right? Use positive language, and are well balanced. They're not going to be so emotional that I'm going to run out of the room. No, please. So I think it's kind of looking at ourselves as well. What sort of leader are you? Are you emotionally balanced? So how do you want to influence others? How do you want to come across? And always someone who's authentic. You're yourself. You're speaking simple language that people understand. And succession planning, I think, is very vital in terms of shifting from the negative to the positive in anything, whether it's politics, whether it's management. This is where we're at. Where do we want to go? So if you include people in that conversation and then plan together positively, I think it can help you because most people want positive outcomes.
And that's so important. If you want to go from A to B, you have to have a plan how to get there. Because then
Mm,
that whatever road you put won't put you in B, you might end up in C.
yeah,
And definitely build a village, right?
yeah.
Of folks that don't think like you, but can motivate you, can
Mhm,
interject and inject positivity in
mhm,
your conversations, because a lot of people think, oh, when I want to be positive, I got to surround myself around positive people. uh,
mhm,
you need a balance, right? Sometimes a negative person will get you in check
mhm.
real
Yes,
quick without a problem.
yes.
But that check serves as a balance. So it's not just surrounding yourself. I have put a post the last couple of days. You're the average of the five people you surround yourself with.
Oh,
So if
yes,
you
I saw
want
that.
to, if you
Mhm,
want to a different outcome, then
mhm,
look at the people that are surrounding you. But
mhm.
that doesn't mean just surround yourself around people that think like you, because then that's group think, right?
Yes,
So it's just, you
yes.
just have to be wise in
Mhm,
the compliment that you keep, and why you are keeping them, right? It goes
mhm,
back to that decision making ability that we have to
mhm,
actually get that going. Now,
mhm,
we're talking about positivity, we're talking about positive people,
mhm.
and there may be a misconception between optimism and positive mindset. But what's the difference there?
I You make me think of Outlook. Again, when you see this, you make me think of Outlook, and there might be sort of some kind of interchanges. I think optimism is really having that outlook, positive outlook for the future. You are optimistic. Um, you are hopeful. Um, there's a sense of belief. There's some goodness that's going to come out of something. And for many people, that is what carries them, you know, really having that positive outlook. Sorry, I'm mixing them now. that that optimism, that when negative things happen, when crisis happens, our responses are not negative. Um, Often, I think people struggle with positivity when something happens. Look at the chaos, look at the destruction in the world. Have I got the right to be angry, sad? Yes, of course, but there's a way to respond. Um, and sometimes people really get into a difficult place. The ones who cannot really cultivate the positivity are the ones sometimes who really struggle with sort of crisis and difficult things um, in the world. So for me, optimism is a positive outlook. Yes, look at it. It's nice and bright. Yes, it's raining. The rain is good for, yes, I can't go out. I'm going to get soaked, but it's good for the grass. Um, it's good for the cows. It's good for nature. Um, I think that's what having the sort of optimistic outlook is sort of the belief. And then did you say something about positivity?
Yeah,
Is
the difference between the, just having a positive mindset and being optimistic.
mm, positive mindset is I think of it more as I can do. The sort of growth mindset and the positive mindset is what am I going to sort of learn from this? Um, Having the confidence that you get over a situation. So I can do this. Um, I'm gonna try my best. It is going to be all right. I have the skills and I have the abilities to get over this. So some of it is more about you, the positive mindset, and others might be more sort of an external kind of processing um, situation. I'm curious to know, how about you? You put me on the spot there.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and not because I came up with it. It's just the fact that we get a lot of confusion around it. And so the way I see it, optimistic is, it's gonna be all right. And then
Mm,
positive mindset of what can I do to make sure it's gonna be all right. And
mm,
there, one is hopeful, one is active, one is something that you actually put your hand to. The other
mm,
one you don't have to put your hand to, you just,
mm.
it's the hope, right? It's a hope.
Yes.
Like we
Mm,
say, hey, suffering or crying or a pain comes in the night, but joy comes in the morning, right? It's just one of those things. We
mm,
understand that this is not the end all to all. And that optimistic outlook allows you to explore positive ways to act in favor of that optimistic view. So they kind of go
mm,
hand in hand, but that's kind of similar to or how I think about it.
mm.
Um,
No, but you're absolutely right. And yesterday I was helping. We had rains, heavy rains 2 days ago, and so yesterday I was helping somebody who a huge tree basically fell in their garden, and they were sort of really stuck in that place where they didn't have a positive outlook on this, you know, and then they kind of really stayed there. So it was really difficult for them to even think about what they can do in that situation. So then I really had to intervene, um, take control of not control of the situation, but help them to manage their emotions. So you're absolutely right. Optimism and then helps you to take action. I like that. I remember that.
great chat there. Now, when
Mm,
you're talking about a positive mindset and the roles of leaders, it's a very important to know when you can execute and when you should do optimism, right? But what's your advice to those that are struggling with being positive? Because you mentioned earlier the world is not as nice as it was for me in the 70s, right? It's
Yeah.
always had an element of things, right? Because we've gone through ages,
Mm,
wars, rumors of wars,
mm,
conflicts, bad leaders at the helm of our states and countries. There's so many elements that have gone throughout our life. It just seemed like everything was bundled up in a package these last couple of years, and it's like a flood of things all at once. So
yeah.
what would be your advice to those that are struggling with being positive?
Yeah. It sounds like the London buses. If you ever come to London and you use London transport, you are going to wait for ages. And then three of them will come all at the same time. And you'll wonder. It is a difficult place that we're facing. And I'm imagining what the kind of boardrooms, the sort of meetings are like with senior management and people faced with all kinds of difficult decisions and the sort of stresses. Um, but again, it really comes to kind of self-awareness, really getting in touch with your emotions, sort of naming and labeling um, what you're sort of struggling, what the sort of struggles are. um, I think it's also about identifying what you'd like to do. Again, it is really positively framed outcomes. It's looking at being inclusive within a team, because um, I'm just remembering what our Prime Minister said yesterday in his speech. He said the mandate is not for one person, but for us as a team. So it's looking at what type of leader you are. Are you a leader who wants to do it all on yourself? What is the definition of leadership? Some people struggle with that. Some people think it's them, you know, at the rooftop, sort of leading and being in charge, making all the decisions, when in fact it's about a collaborative effort, when in fact it's about you being authentically yourself and behaving in a way that enables people to feel positive about themselves and really want to work with yourself and together towards the sort of the acquired outcomes. So I'd ask them to look at their behavior. It's not easy. What are you putting out there? How are you behaving? Because there are some people that will look at and will run miles, and there are some people, despite and in spite of the challenges, we'll come towards them. We'll all get our brushes, and then we'll sweep the strips. We'll sweep the streets together with them. So, and honest conversations, communication is key. You know, communicate in a way where everyone, there's a win-win situation for you as a leader, and also for the ones that you're leading. I think those are the ways that you can cut across some of the negativity in a sort of positive way. So communicate authentically, sort of collaborate. Um, you're a team, not just one person leading. Um, be inclusive. Um, and people want to show off their strengths. So if you come up to me, Enrique, for example, and say, "Yay, Juliet, you're great at this," you know, facilitating, or this positive empowerment coach, and somebody else is really good at making graphs. If you lead in that way, you're gonna build up people's strengths, and this is what they'll be showing you in a team. So I think those are the sort of discussions I'd be having with them. um yeah.
Absolutely. Now, talking about how great you are at what you do, Juliet,
Mm.
we're talking about how great you are at doing what you do. Uh, how would someone get a hold of you if they wanted to speak to you about, positive mindset and things of that nature, or have you speak at one of their events, or have you teach a master class, or any of the services that you provide?
Mm. Just like you did, Enrique, just like we connected. Please check out my. I'm on LinkedIn and I'm fairly consistent. I don't post every day, but I'm consistent in the sense that I'll sort of check out my friends on a daily basis and connect and comment. So I am consistent, posting regularly. So I'd ask people to check out my profile, um, send me send me a sort of a DM, and then let's initially talk about what they've liked and maybe what I can help them with. What are they looking to what do they want, what is missing. So really connect through LinkedIn. I'm fairly present, not fairly, I am present um, every day. So I'd be very, very happy because I know this is something that I feel so passionate about. um, I don't think that there is a need for anybody to be walking in such a negative state when actually we have tools, when we have the power, when we have the control to live in a more positive way. Life is a lot more happier. Sort of look at me. Of course, there are different things that are happening, but it's just having that mindset and mind frame and getting away from negative or unhelpful thinking to something more positive and helpful. Another way I talk to people about positive thinking is what is helpful thinking, so they can create and live in a sort of emotionally sort of balanced state and work towards the outcomes. So that was a bit long. It's LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn.
Outstanding. And folks, we'll make sure to have her profile featured on the show notes and video so you can get a hold of Juliet. Juliet, thank you so much for sharing this topic with me. Such a integral and such a important topic given the days that we've been living. There are a lot of opportunities, folks, to be negative, and I would probably agree with you on some of those areas. But the truth of the matter is that we have the ability, as Julia had mentioned earlier, to join with a word, or not, right? To join with a concept or not. We have the ability to create different outcomes for ourselves if we really want it. And so if you are looking for that positive outcome, positive mindset, way of thinking, please get a hold of Juliet, and I'll have all her information as part of the video and show notes. I just want to remind everybody that today's episode is sponsored by Triad Leadership Solutions. If you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to subscribe and let us know by leaving a comment right now. And we're always looking for new ideas and guests that can be added to our show. So if you know someone or have a topic that you would like featured on the podcast or want to sponsor our show, we love to hear about it by emailing us at triadleadershipsolutions@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end this show, success to you.